Thanks, thank you.
Tracy Noble is a criminal. She commits the same crime every day. She begs on the streets. She's become a target of a law dating back to the Napoleonic Wars, which says begging's a crime. That law's been revived, and it's being used to sweep beggars off the streets. Now, 17-year-old Tracy's fighting back, leaving the streets behind her. She's gone to Parliament to tell MPs what it's like to beg for a living.
When I walk out of here, I'm going to have to go to Waterloo Bridge. I'm going to have to beg so that I've got food for tonight, so that I've got something to live on. I've got a dog as well, you see, so that is a bit of company, but that's all the company I've got is my dog.
But Tracy's no longer on her own. These barristers are campaigning to stop the law being used as a substitute for effective ways of helping the homeless.
They're arrested, spend the night in a police cell, turn up in a magistrate's court, are found guilty and fined and sent back out again. I really don't see the point of that.
Come on.
Tonight, we reveal how this archaic law is being used increasingly against people who can't afford a roof over their heads.
Come on. You spare a little change at all, sir? Thank you. Please see you sat down, they automatically think you're begging and nick you for begging. I've been nicked for begging when I haven't been begging. I've been sat actually talking to somebody who isn't even begging themselves. Yeah, not even at a begging pitch. Yeah, and they've nicked us for begging. Look, there's 2 coppers over there now. I mean, they just walk around and just nick people for nothing. Spare a little change towards some food for the
Judy Foster's been living rough for 17 years. She has to beg every day, and every day she risks arrest.
You've got to live, so therefore if you've got to live on the street, then you do your best you can to get money. And if it means sitting begging to get money, then I'll sit and beg and get money. If I get nicked, I get nicked.
If she's arrested, it'll be under the Vagrancy Act, passed in 1824, one of a series of restrictive laws aimed at unemployed veterans of the Napoleonic Wars.
Every person wandering abroad
to beg or gather alms
shall be deemed an idle and disorderly person,
a rogue and a vagabond.
Barristers Mark Grindrod and Matt Kelly discovered in the course of their work that the old act's been brought out of mothballs. Now it's used in the courts every day.
We appear in the magistrate, or I certainly appear in the magistrates' courts very regularly, and over the last 12 to 18 months, the number of people who we see in the courts being prosecuted for either sleeping out, which is a lower figure, or for begging, which is an extremely high figure now, has increased dramatically.
For me, the issue really is, why on earth ought we to prosecute, waste court time, waste public money to prosecute people for sleeping rough, for example? It's a crime in England to sleep out of doors under Section 4 of the Vagrancy Act. I find that wholly immoral. For me, the criminal law ought to have no role whatever in that sort of situation.
The number of people arrested and taken to court under the Vagrancy Act has rocketed. Most cases are in London, where there was a steady rise in arrests up to 1988. But according to probation officers, prosecutions suddenly soared last year. There were 4 times as many cases as in 1988.
And I'm absolutely convinced that a decision's been taken within the Home Office at a fairly high level to increase the number of prosecutions. There can't really be any other explanation. Prosecutions don't double or even treble because of a change in police tactics. It looks as if it's an attempt by the Home Office to clean up London for the purposes of business people and tourists.
Spare any change at all, please? Thank you.
Tracy! Tracy!
Oh.
Move, old Bill!
Shit.
Tracy's in trouble again. She's been arrested for begging 4 times in the last few months. For this teenager, a night in the cells and a court appearance was a traumatic experience.
Just felt really sort of cold, lonely, you know, shocks more than anything, you know. In a split second I was nicked, and I was only standing there 2 minutes before that. And sort of having 4 walls around you, nothing to look at, you know, it's pretty sort of shocking, a pretty horrible experience.
When she last appeared at a London court 2 months ago, The magistrate warned Tracy that she'd be fined £50 if she was caught begging again. Then she was back on the streets without enough cash to get through the day.
I've got about £2. That's all I've got. Which I got nicked with yesterday, which I only managed to beg up about £2 yesterday before I got nicked.
So what are you going to do to get some more money?
I'd have to beg to get some more money. So I'd rather not go out and mug somebody or burglar a house. I'd rather just sit and beg and get caught for begging than getting caught for mugging or something like that, which is a real criminal. Because of my problem.
Today, Tracy's been invited to meet the barrister Matt Kelly, who's fighting to abolish the Vagrancy Act. It's a rare chance for Tracy to enjoy a day out with her family, but she's still confused about the court's verdict.
Do you understand what it means to be bound over to keep the peace for 6 months?
No, I'm not really sure about it.
Well, what it means is that if you get into any bother in the next 6 months, the court will insist that you pay the £50 to them. In other words, if you beg and are convicted of begging, or if you sleep out, if they catch you sleeping out, you lose the £50.
Yeah. And that's a bit pointless, isn't it? Because you have to beg to survive. The point is putting me on probation in the first place, because the only survival I've got is begging, so that means I'm going to breach it anyway.
Yes.
You know, or unless is mugging and doing a serious crime.
Well, you wouldn't want to do that, do you?
No.
Tracy's criminal record is a damaging setback to her hopes of ever breaking out from a vicious circle of homelessness and begging.
Well, I'm not going to be able to get a decent job, and it weighs you down from getting a council place. If you've got a criminal record, they don't want to know you, basically. They won't even interview you. And begging is, to me, in my eyes, is not a crime. It is a matter of survival.
What sort of job would you have liked to have got?
I'd like to work with children or handicapped people, mentally or physically.
Will you be able to get a job like that?
While Tracy spends her time dodging the law, Matt Kelly's trying to change it, lobbying MPs and ministers to abolish the Vagrancy Act.
For me, it was a question of outrage. I simply could not understand why we as a society, why we as a legal system were concerned with prosecuting homeless people. To me, they're the most vulnerable, the most in need of protection from the legal system, most at risk, and here we were prosecuting them.
The barristers' campaign against the Vagrancy Act has drawn wide support. They've been joined by leading charities, churches, probation officers and MPs of all political parties. Tracy was offered a unique opportunity to tell members of Parliament about her life as a beggar on the streets. The MPs want to know why extra government money has made no difference to people like Tracy and her friend Judy. Together they set off for the House of Commons to meet MPs who formed the all-party group on homelessness.
And it would be very helpful if you could tell us at first hand what happened to you. Tracy, perhaps we can start with you.
Well, I was 2, my parents got divorced, so I got known to social services. At the age of 6, social services decided to put me in care, so they took my parents to court and put me on a Place of Safety Act. Then I went through woman childhood into care.
You charged on the vacancy?
Yeah.
And who are you fined? And what happened?
I've got 12 months probation, the first time I've ever been caught. I've never broken the law, apart from begging. And then I went to court again, I got a £10 fine in 1 day, and got done for breaching it.
I just beg, like, you know, to get by, but some people give, some people don't. But, like, I went down to Social Security to try and put in a claim because I haven't got a birth certificate or any ID, they won't pay me anything.
It's very cold, sitting on a cold, damp floor. We've been sat there in the rain, yeah, and it's just really terrible, and I feel very, very low that I have to ask people for money, and this government won't provide us it.
Are you getting any other source of income at all at the moment?
No. Well, you see, the law says that between 16 and 18-year-olds, you don't get no income support at all, which means you have to be on a YTS. I've tried living in a YTS, tried living in a flat, and I've left with £3 a week through doing it, and nobody can survive on feeding themselves on £3 a week.
How long do you sit there? What time do you
Well,
attend there?
you
What time do
see,
you leave?
in the bullring, there's loads and loads of people. There's over 150 people in that bullring, and everybody's got to beg a day. So we have about half an hour in each pitch to beg. I've begged there for half an hour in the rain, and I've got 10p, and I've had 2 law chasing after me with 10p in my pocket. That's all I owe to my name that day, and I still have the law chasing me. But I would like actually everybody at this table now to actually come down and have a look and picture themselves in the situation at the age of 17, maybe 14, 15-year-olds we've had down there, and to actually sit at begging pitch and beg, you know, and actually go through a little bit of what we go through every day-to-day life. Or just go down there and have a look around and see what actually conditions we live in.
This is life at the bottom. These homeless people have taken refuge in the tunnels of an underground car park, where they hope the police won't find them. And beneath the streets, just moments away from Waterloo Station, up to 200 homeless people live in the notorious Cardboard City under the Bullring traffic roundabout. Here, Tracy's been sharing a world that can be violent and distressing.
We have a drink-related problem from alcoholics, vagrants. We have a small drugs problem down there. We have a difficult problem with some of the youngsters coming into the Bullring. We have had people coming in who want to take youngsters to work away for filming and pornography. That is a problem as far as police is concerned. A very serious problem.
This place became home for Tracy. She built what's known as a bash, a shelter to sleep in, made from scraps of wood covered with old blankets.
You wanted to try and make it more homely more than anything. You see, you just wrap round blankets, quilts and everything, sleeping bags right round you, try and keep warm at night. Sometimes you can't even go outside your bash because it's so cold outside. And it's very damp in here, very dirty. You can never keep a bash really, really clean, how much you even try. You can't keep yourself really, really clean as well. And you can never keep warm enough unless it's really, really hot day. But even then, the sun just does not shine into the Bullring.
So why do you stay down here?
Because I haven't got anywhere else to go.
Where have you spent your life up to now?
Children's homes. In and out of children's home all the time, social services care.
If you live with a family, what sort of things would a family give you?
They'll give us probably the love and the goodness and things you do get from a proper family, which I missed out, which social services can't give any child if they're in their care. They just can't. They can't give you your love and the care and whatever, you know, than a proper mother and father can, how much they try.
What do you think's going to happen to you, Tracy?
Don't know. Eventually get out of here, yeah. But you have to build up to it, you see. You can't just turn around and pack your stuff and go, basically, you see. You've got to get yourself clothing, you've got to get help, you've got to get somewhere to live first. You can't just leave and find a bed and breakfast somewhere else. Sounds easy, but you can't, because you just end up back here again. Because I want a career when I'm older. I don't want to end up in prison and end up on the streets all my life. I'm only 17, you know.
Every day, thousands of commuters from Waterloo must walk past the beggars and have to face sometimes persistent calls for money. But no one we spoke to wanted to see the law used to crack down on begging.
You think they should be arrested?
I wouldn't think arresting is a bit strong, I would have thought.
Well, if that is the law, it needs some sort of amendment, because we've got to try and help these people. I don't think their begging is more objectionable than being accosted in the street for a recognised charity.
I would think as a general thing they're not doing it because they choose to, and I think that's a pretty harsh law.
It's just a product of society at the moment. I don't think, you know, they're doing nothing wrong.
Do you give them money?
Sometimes, yeah.
We're just 200 yards probably down the road there to the entrance to Cardboard City. And this is the natural route that people would use to get to Waterloo Station.
1,000 people work here at IBM. Some have fears about meeting aggressive begging on the way to and from work. So the company provides a car to take staff the short journey to the station and avoid the beggars on the streets. IBM is one of the big businesses which have supported privately funded projects to help the homeless. And for 2 years they've been pushing Whitehall for action without any apparent result.
Central government has to be the source of the solutions and the funding for the answers to these problems. And one of the complicating factors is there are quite a number of departments involved in this, as you're obviously aware. Social Security, Health, Environment. We talked to them, as I mentioned previously, but they seem to really be playing some sort of a game of pass the parcel between them. We hear a lot of noise and concern and intent for action, but we don't see those actions just yet, anyway.
Below the streets of Waterloo, members of Parliament stepped into Tracy's world, a visit to her makeshift home.
Can you show me where you live, Tracy?
Well, I live here.
In here?
Yeah. It's very damp, cold, wet.
Yes.
It's interesting they have their own sort of rules that once somebody's got a pitch, they're there.
Yeah, there's a code of conduct here, isn't there, which is their own code of conduct. But everything about it is
squalid.
Is squalid and untidy and dirty. I don't understand how they can endure this. I suppose they've no option, that's the thing.
Judy lives in a tent in a nearby churchyard. To try to keep the damp out, she's pitched it on a gravestone.
As you can see, this is where me and my fiancé sleep, right? It's very cold at night. You can feel the damp on the bedding and that, where we've got to sleep.
You have to keep replacing the cardboard, won't you?
Yes, we do. We have to replace it every night.
Yeah. I mean, it's so soft.
Yeah, I mean, even the
and wet.
Even the sleeping bags get damp. You feel that it's damp.
And how do you manage to wash
Well,
your
we have
clothes?
to go into the public toilets to get a wash, and if I want to wash my underwear, I just have to wash it in the public toilets and hang it in the tent, no, but it dries.
Hang it in the tent?
Yeah, no, but
that
it
makes
dries.
the tent even wetter.
Yeah, but there's nowhere else to do it, you know.
This is very damp. I can feel it all going through my legs. It's absolutely soaking. It is just unbelievable, incredible that anybody can be expected to live in these conditions.
Well, this is what we've got to sleep in.
In England and Wales, begging is a criminal act. It is obviously a nonsense from what we've seen here today. The Vagrancy Act needs to be repealed. It has been repealed in Scotland, and I think as a start, we should decriminalise begging.
I think if the government looked at the problem of homelessness and that its reaction was to legalise begging, I think a lot of people quite rightly would criticise the government for taking, as it were, the easy way out. And I think that the Vagrancy Act is very much at the margins of what we've all seen. There are more fundamental, more structural problems which we've got to tackle.
Excuse me, could you spare a little change towards some food for the homeless, please? Spare a little change towards some food for the homeless, please. Well, it gets you depressed and down, and when you get depressed, then maybe you start turning to the drink, maybe the drugs. I'm just one of the lucky ones that hasn't turned to it yet.
Oh, look who we've got over there, Catherine. To Mr. CID, even, eh? What, eh? I was for knitting beggars, are we, even, eh? I'm not going to stand there just to be awkward, but I don't care.
That makes one of the bully.
I don't really want to beg anyway. It's good to know anyway. I want to go from one end of the River Thames right to the other end of the River Thames on a nice hot day, sun shining, sitting on the top and just laying there relaxing. Yeah.
Up to half of the homeless youngsters on London streets have come from children's homes and have no families to go home to. 2 years ago, the government changed the benefit rules. Since then, 16 and 17-year-olds who aren't on youth training schemes can be denied welfare payments. There is a discretionary safety net intended to catch those in severe hardship, but Tracy's fallen through it. She's made numerous visits to the Department of Social Security, but they've told her she can get money only if she has a doctor's certificate to say she's sick. So she has to beg, and like many other youngsters, becomes a target for the Vagrancy Act.
The overwhelming number of people that we've looked at have been in care, on social security, have had rows with their parents and been forced to leave home, have been thrown out of lodgings, no alternative. They can't apply for state benefits because they haven't got an address. They can't go on to YT work programmes because they're not getting benefit. So they're stuck, they've got no alternate.
How would these young people survive if they didn't beg?
If the police operation continues to be successful, driving the young people who are begging off the streets, and there is no other source of income, which clearly they can't be because they've got no houses, then I'm convinced they will turn to other forms of crime, which might involve petty theft, burglary, stealing off the street.
Do you need the Vagrancy Act in your armoury of legislation?
Well, the Vagrancy Act now is, 164 years old. It was brought in for a specific purpose after the Napoleonic Wars. So I think any sensible person will say, well, you know, it's about time we reviewed it. Having said that, if you repeal the Act and we have no legislation against begging, effectively what you're saying is, well, we will legalise begging. I doubt very much whether many people would like to legalise begging.
Do you ever feel that you're left clearing up problems that other people have left behind them?
After 20 years and 28 years in the police service, I think I've got to say yes to that.
Do you spare any change here at all, please? Thank you. How are you today? Great. Yeah. It's a bit better day. That is showing a bit of affection when somebody actually comes up to you, chatting to you, and just finds, you know, interest in you, actually, you know.
We asked the Home Office for an interview about the way the Vagrancy Act is now being used. World in Action was told that the Minister, John Patton, declined to be filmed and would appear only on a live programme. His press officer sent us a statement.
Government shares public concern about the problems of homelessness, and departments are looking together at what more can be done to help. We do not think that the solution is to repeal the Vagrancy Act. We understand that in general the police only arrest for begging where there is some element of threatening or intimidating behaviour.
Today, probation officers disclosed new figures showing a big increase in prosecution of beggars. Meanwhile, as the young homeless continue to camp out on the streets, politicians debate in Parliament.
When are we, Mr. Speaker, going to hear from government ministers not the supposed voices of concern, but real action that will end this enormous scandal in London and indeed in many other parts of this country?
Mr. Speaker, of course we accept the seriousness of the problem of the number of people sleeping rough, and we've already earmarked £250 million to relieve the problem of the homeless, and this will release some hostel space for people sleeping rough. And we are now considering, as a matter of urgency, the further steps we shall want to take to solve this very serious problem.
Could my honourable friend indicate what proportion are young persons under 18, and could not and should not some of them return back to live with their parents?
Well, I can tell my honourable friend that it would seem that there is a growing number of young people who are part of this growing population of people who are sleeping rough. And it is certainly part of our policy to, as my honourable friend says, to encourage them to go home. And one of the very first things that the voluntary organisations do, for instance, is precisely that, to ask them why they left and to try to encourage them to go home.
We last saw Tracy here by the River Thames. A few days ago, she was admitted to hospital suffering from asthma. She expects to be released on Friday. She has no idea of where she'll go.